Alrighty, well, I'm going to go ahead and get us started so we can really use this hour for us. So hello and welcome to our Young Alumni Lunch and Learn webinar series hosted by Trinity University's Office of Alumni Relations. My name is Sydney Lopez and I serve as the Young Alumni and Student Programs Coordinator here at Trinity, and I'd like to welcome and thank you all for attending. This is a series of one of many offerings that our office has continued to develop over the past year, geared specifically for our young alumni community. And today's session is titled Prioritizing Your Well-Being. Before I introduce our speaker, just a few quick housekeeping items. If you are joining us live here today, you are on the Zoom webinar platform. So this is slightly different from a regular Zoom meeting. You'll only be able to see myself and the speaker's video feed. If you have questions for our speaker, please use the Q&A function found at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and I'll keep an eye on that as we continue our conversation and pass along any of your questions to our speaker throughout the time we have today. As an FYI, this webinar is being recorded and will be uploaded to our YouTube page soon after for your continued viewing. So I'll go ahead and introduce our speaker today, who is Kimberly Gutierrez. Kimberly is dedicated to developing others to their highest potential through a balanced combination of education, design, and innovation. Over the past 10 years, she has been living her passions in leading groundbreaking professional development programs, executing projects that meet organizational needs, and designing experiences that create lasting impacts. She currently works as a director of leadership programs for the Hispanic Association for Career Enhancement. Leveraging her master's degree in instructional technology combined with her project management professionalism certification, she creates a powerful foundation for the execution of programs and development strategies. But it's really her balanced approach that builds happy, engaged teams, organizations, and communities. When she's not developing today's leaders, she is a committed volunteer, avid yogi, aspiring farmer, and a former tiny house dweller, and a new resident of the Los Angeles area. This passion for life began with her undergraduate studies at Trinity University, where she was an active member of the Zeta Chi sorority and a consistent volunteer within the San Antonio community. She graduated in 2009 with majors in human communication and business administration, lifelong friendships, and a great appreciation for the San Antonio community. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Kimberly to get us started. Thank you.
Thank you, Sydney. Thank you for that great introduction. As Sydney mentioned, my name is Kimberly Gutierrez. I am currently employed as the Director of Leadership Programs for the Hispanic Alliance for Career Enhancement. And I'm just so grateful to be here today with Trinity University, giving back to an organization that gave so much to me. I did graduate in 2009. I met my partner there. All of my bridesmaids were Trinity grads. So lots of love and just really had that positive impact on my life. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen so that way we can see the presentation. As Sydney mentioned, this is prioritizing your well-being. So welcome, and we'll go ahead and get started. As part of the presentation, you were sent a PDF that will help guide you along some of the learning. If you don't have that PDF in front of you, or you're just not filling paper right now, I invite you to follow along in your journey, and I'll go ahead in your journal, and I'll go ahead and give instructions as we go through for both avenues. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. So what are we going to accomplish today? So today we're going to go through a simple model regarding well-being that really will allow you to take control of that concept within your life. And I am going to challenge you to take some of the learning, take some of the stuff that we do from today's session and bring it back to your life, put it into practice, because that's really why I'm here, to help you find that balance within your own well-being. With that, we're going to talk about what is well-being. Well, I love this definition here that says well-being is the state of being happy, healthy, and prosperous. When looking at definitions, I just really felt that this one was simple, but it hit on the three pillars that I wanted for my own life and for my own journey. And so that's what really is the guiding principle and what we're looking to achieve when we talk about well-being. With each of my learning sessions, I'm a big champion of you own your own development. So with that, either on the PDF, you'll see that opportunity right there in that little box at the top of this the sheet, or in your own journal. Just take a couple of moments and just describe what you would like to get out of today's session. Again, this is for you, but if you're feeling brave and you want to share in the chat, we're definitely here for that as well. So I'll give you guys a couple of moments to just identify your goal for this session. And if you are following along at home and you want to hit that pause button, that works as well. I do want to go ahead and continue. Like I said, if you do feel like sharing your goal in the chat as we're creating this community of learning and support, I'm definitely here to help you with that goal and be your partner in your development around well-being. So what is this model that we're going to be talking about? It's a very simple model where well-being is broken down into 6 different components. And this workshop and this model has been used to teach everything from first graders with some modifications to executives with some modifications. And what really appealed to me about, there's so many wellness and well-being wheels out there, but I love the simplicity of this model. 6 components I found was something that I could easily work with and that was easily achievable for me, being able to integrate that into my own life. So what are those 6 components? First, we have mental health. This is really your ability to understand how to handle emotions and deal with stress. Then we have physical health. This is your physical manifestation. This is taking care of your actual body. We have financial health, which is building financial security. We have spiritual health, which is creating that purpose in your life and connecting with something larger than self. We have social health, which is building relationships that are based on respect and trust, so important during the pandemic. And then occupational health, doing work that you love. So as we go through the next couple of slides, we're going to go through each of these components a little bit more in depth. And I invite you either on your worksheet or in your journal to just write down a quick reminder of something that you want to take back to your own life to improve your well-being. So let's go ahead and get started with that. So the first thing that we talk about is mental health. And this is because I really consider this to be the foundation for well-being. And again, it's understanding how to handle your emotions and handle stress. Oftentimes, mental health can be overlooked and underestimated. And in other models, I've seen it combined with physical health. But because concentrating on this piece had such a positive impact on my own life and my own journey, I decided to keep it pulled out. And this can be improved with meditation and self-care. Like, for example, right now I have my essential oils going over here in the corner. And, I'm jumping in between meetings. So really to get into the mindset for this session, I just, I did a little breathing exercise right before jumping in. And it just really helped add some clarity and add some focus to why we're here. And you know what, since I have you guys here, let's go ahead and I'm going to invite you to sit back in your chair, to close your eyes and breathe. Breathe in and breathe out. And doing something that simple as breathing can have a huge impact on your mental health. You'll see here that I do have a picture of me and one of my pets. And again, that's just, having pets, whether they're chickens, whether they're dogs, I have both and appreciate them greatly, has been a huge, huge help in helping me manage stress and anxiety and really just weather the pandemic and the quarantine associated with that. So the next concept that we're going to talk about is physical health. And this is taking care of your physical body. which is so important because your body is your physical manifestation of self. This is the most you that the world is going to be able to, interact with through those five senses. And really, it impacts all the other components of well-being. So, of course, most of us are aware that this can be improved by diet and exercise, even though we may not always hold ourselves accountable to that. And the picture that I have here and what's kept me consistently, exercising and consistently active is my yoga practice. And so I definitely invite you as you go through to think about how you can take better care of your body. Identify an area that you want to focus on. I understand that whenever looking at diet and exercise, there's so many different components of things, but it can be as simple as drinking water. So these are just some of the things that you can do to one small change can have a big impact on your physical health. A while back during the pandemic, I got a physical and my cholesterol was high. And I was super shocked by this piece. Maybe a little bit in denial, but after I looked at the sheet, I was like, okay, this is something that I need to work on. An app that I utilized was MyFitnessPal. And so it allowed me to track what was going into my body. And y'all did see a picture of one of my chickens, Quinny, on the previous page. And what I realized was these farm fresh, delicious eggs that I was eating every morning were negatively impacting my health. So definitely motivated me to do some switching up in my diet and make those choices right for me. But the important thing was I had that app or had that information that allowed me to make these informed decisions. And I invite you to get that information and do what works for you. The next item that we're going to talk about is going to be financial health, building that financial security. And this involves prioritizing and planning for you based off of your needs. You can see here, I lived in a tiny house for 5 years. And while it was trending at the time, and I got lots of great conversations around tiny house living, for my family, it was really a financial decision. We utilized an app called Hello Wallet that allowed us to kind of track where our money was going. And we had some surprising findings from that. One of the things led us to, wanting to own a home, and, tiny house living made that feasible for us. And again, whenever you are looking at your finances, the big piece here is having that information, making those decisions, setting your own priorities, whether it's, saving for retirement or saving for travel. Maybe you want to save for your kids' college fund. Whatever that priority is, definitely have that end goal in mind. I will say it makes the sacrifice a little bit easier, knowing that it is aligned with this larger goal, this larger outcome. But again, tracking those expenses, having those conversations within your family unit are so important in building that financial health and that long-term financial security. The next component is going to be spiritual health. This is creating purpose and connecting with something larger than self. And it's unique for everyone. Whenever I do this slide, I always share the story of me and my two brothers, and what spiritual health and what that connection to something larger than self looks like between each of us. So my older brother, for him, connecting to something larger than self, he's like, oh, that's easy. He's like, church on Sundays, I got my family sitting in the pew with me. We're all together with our community worshiping, and that's how I connect to something larger than self. My younger brother, he's like, Kim, whenever I go to, somewhere foreign and I don't know the people and I don't know the language, and I'm in a market or a forum and it just makes sense. It's like that whenever I feel like I'm connected to something larger than self. And for me, another picture here, I'm completely different than both of them. It's whenever I'm alone or almost alone in nature. It's whenever I feel that awe, that connecting to something larger than self. But I share these stories with you to help build that understanding that that connection is unique to each of us, and you have to find that peace in your life and what resonates with you. So this is the part. Social health is something that I felt like was definitely impacted by the pandemic. I'll let you guys in on a little secret. I am an introvert. And so how I've navigated social health is, I'll give you some tips and tricks on that in just a little bit. But social health is building those relationships based on trust and respect. And this was so important during the pandemic, especially if you had friends that you were quarantining with. Having that trust and respect, like, hey, I'm going to do the things I need to do to ensure the safety, of this quarantine group. So important. At least that I am an introvert, and so for me, social interactions can be draining. Definitely, can use a lot of energy. And so how I navigated that situation is by combining my social interactions with things that do feed my soul, that do feed that energy. So you'll see in one of the pictures with one of my girlfriends, and we're taking a class together. Another one, we are doing a walk for breast cancer. And the one on the bottom, I love dressing up in costumes. Love it. And so I convinced my team to dress up in costumes, and you know what? All the stuff we had to do that day was just, a little bit more fulfilling and more rewarding. And I share this so that way you can think like, oh, hey, what works for me? Maybe it's dressing up in costumes. Maybe it's not, but really you have to figure out what that balance is for you and in your life, because finding your people or finding your person is such a core component to your well-being. And finally, we talk about occupational health. So doing work that you are passionate about. And in these pictures, you see my day job, facilitating, teaching in the classroom. Then you'll see before the pandemic, I participated in Trinity's mentoring program, and I took my mentee to go tour Rackspace because she was interested in potentially working there. And at the bottom, I sat on the board of the Mitchell Lake Audubon Center, and you see a picture of me there with some of the other board members. And I chose these images because sometimes our occupational health is not necessarily what we get paid to do. Obviously, doing what you love is a privilege, but also being able to volunteer, to give your time doing work that you love that maybe you're not getting paid for, definitely still allows you to kind of fill in that wedge within your well-being model and bring that greater balance to your life. So with that, I'll give you guys a couple of moments to just go through and take some final notes on your just quick reminders of areas within, whether it's mental health, physical health, financial health, spiritual health, social health, or occupational health. What are some of these reminders that you can take back and build to improve your own well-being? Okay, so as you came back, I hope that you had some great reminders and some great tidbits on just different things that you can do to build well-being into your life and really make that a priority. For our next session, we're going to take that even just a little bit deeper, and I'm going to invite you to do a little self-assessment on your own well-being. Now that we've gone through each of the different components, we're moving to the back sheet of the worksheet, and you'll see a pie graph there. Within the pie graph, there are, each of the different components that we've gone through. I invite you to take a little bit of time and just reflect on each of these different areas and either, follow the directions here and shade to the line that best describes your current level of health. Or I've also had people put dots where they currently are. If you're following along in your journal, I would invite you to just use a very simple scale, 1 to 10, where you are currently with each of these different areas. And again, if you're following along your journey in your journal, those areas are mental health, physical health, financial health, spiritual health, social health, and occupational health. So as you guys are taking some time to navigate through that last activity, I invite the people on our live session today, if there's a session or an area where you feel like, hey, I'm in the outer ring, my health in this area is super high, I definitely invite you to share that in the chat. And we're all here to just celebrate a little bit with you and maybe learn from you as we go through these next session. We'll take a couple more moments to start wrapping that piece up. Okay, so I know that sometimes with self-assessment, it can be a little bit difficult, but I definitely invite you to, if there was an area where maybe you're not as happy with your progress, where you're feeling like, man, I'm really not where I should be, I definitely recommend that you be kind to yourself. Not only is it good for your mental health, but it's also just a great way to navigate through these changes instead of looking at it as an area where I'm not meeting my expectations. Look at it as like, oh, hey, I have this area of opportunity. I obviously took time to, invest in a class and make improvements where I can. And so that's what I would invite you to focus on as you make these improvements. And just having a little bit of that positive output and outlook on everything definitely impacts the whole process and how we navigate well-being. So the next area that we are going to talk about is really starting to put some of this stuff into practice and making those improvements within your lives. And we're going to start this off by just going through each of these different areas and identifying one positive factor and one negative factor that may be affecting each of these different health components. For example, for mental health, a positive factor that is impacting my mental health is going to be my daily meditation practice. I try to meditate 15 and 30 minutes every day, and that is a positive factor. I've seen the impacts on my mental health. I've seen the impacts on my stress levels, and also identify negative factors impacting your mental health. And these are things that are having those negative impacts. For me, one of the negative impacts is going to be, I feel like, just stress in general, stress associated with the pandemic, and managing that stress. So as you go through each of these different components, I invite you to be real with yourself, have those real conversations, take a real look at where you're at in each of these different areas, and really focus on, hey, this is where I'm at. This is something that, is going, is happening, is doing really well. This is something that maybe could be an area of opportunity in the future. If you are working on your journal and following along, I invite you, just as you go through, write, one positive and one negative factor that is impacting each of these different components. And then we'll move to the next step here, to the next bullet here in just a little bit. I'll give you guys a couple moments to start wrapping that up. And Sydney, because you are the only person that I can see on this session, I might have you just share a couple of the pieces or one of the areas within the health component. And I'm going to give you that heads up.
Sure, I'd love to, no problem.
And I will tell you, while you guys are working on that, I am just navigating backwards through some of the chat. I'm glad to see there's some Zeta Chi love happening in the chat. So excited for that piece. And I hope that, let me move a little bit closer so that way you guys can hear me a little bit better. And just the same thing that I asked Sydney, as you're going through, I would invite you in the chat to share one of the components, you know, whether it is your mental health, your physical health, or any of the other components, one of those positive and negative factors impacting that component. Give you guys a couple more moments to start wrapping that up. So Sydney, which component did you select and what was the negative and positive factors that you identified?
Yeah, I think the one that I was immediately drawn to was the mental health. I think that's been, right, such a huge, at least for me, a big area that I've had to work on, especially over the last year, you know, with the pandemic and all things associated with that. So one of the positive factors is I've really learned to disconnect and find other outlets to kind of find entertainment and enjoyment that don't involve technology, whether that's, you know, reading or finding a new kind of hobby or something different to do that's active and engages me. That's not kind of, you know, scrolling through TikTok or any other of the social medias or something like that. So I think that's definitely one of the positive factors that I've seen as a counteractive. You know, one of the negative factors that I think is just the pandemic and being online all the time for so many other reasons. So
no, I love that. And I love that you kind of connected an opportunity and how you're kind of working through that pandemic stress, right?
yeah.
I think disconnecting is so important because I'm with you. I felt like definitely at the beginning, I was very plugged in. I was reading all the news, and it put me just in a very dark kind of a place mentally, and especially as I was looking at like the outlook of different things. And so I think just, taking that time to disconnect. Also something, if you want to connect this to your social health, I think connecting with others, To disconnect is disconnect from technology, connecting with people. This has been something that's really just helped me navigate that headspace as well. Prior to that, I used to use this app, actually called Headspace. That was just a great little meditation tool with very just quick on the go kind of meditation outlets, whether it's breathing, walking you through a short breathing exercise, whether it's walking you through, meditation. I found that to be very, very useful as well. And everyone else who is tuning in online, if you want to share some of your experience in the chat, we are definitely here with that as well. And we're looking forward to it. Oh, but thank you so much, Sydney, for sharing. I know sometimes having those shares can definitely put you in a vulnerable space. So I appreciate that. The next component, the next component that we're going to talk about is, again, setting that goal. We've talked through all the different components this morning around well-being. And now I'm going to challenge you to identify one goal or one change that you want to incorporate in your own life. And again, this doesn't have to be something, a huge change. This can be as simple as, disconnecting for 15 minutes a day. It can be as simple as, taking 5 minutes to breathe in the morning. But what is that one thing that you're going to take back to your own life after this session, just to improve your well-being? I'm a huge fan of small incremental changes over time. That's what moves mountains. I found that in my own experience, whenever I have whenever I create these monstrous goals for myself, it definitely just has that anxiety piece to it. But doing something small, something simple, allows me to keep those promises to myself. And I have seen those changes happen incrementally over time. So with that, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of silence to just reflect on all the different components that we've gone through today, all the things that we've talked about, and identify one change that you're going to incorporate into your life. And I'll give you guys some time to do that. If you're still working on your goal, on your singular change, definitely take your time in coming through with that. But if you have it, I will invite you to share that one change in the chat. What is something that you're going to take back to your own experience into incorporating well-being into your life? And I will ask you, Sydney, as well. Is there something that you're like, hey, this is what I'm gonna take back from this?
Yeah, I think I really, as we've talked about leading up to this session, I think you've called them kind of the dimensions of well-being as a whole. I've loved that approach because I think for me, I've often only thought of, like mental and physical health, but there are so many other components to that I might not have thought to put effort into really honing in on what it means to feel like I have well-being in those areas. So at a base level, really just take more time to reflect on the occupational health and social, financial, and spiritual health as well is what I'm really looking forward to doing as well.
That's perfect. And I wish you all the luck in each of those, because I will tell you, I had the same experience where I was just looking at well-being as a very, just like the foundational pieces of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until I kind of took my own journey down this road that I really started seeing, it's like, oh, hey, I have to consider all of these things.
Right.
And then they're all tied together and, impacting this thing that is my personal well-being, that is my ultimately my life. And so that's whenever I had that true just aha moment of, hey, Kim, like this is you. This is your journey. You own this. And, if you take all of these things into consideration, you'll start to see that overall improvement to the quality of your life. And so, that's another reason why I love teaching this workshop, just because I've seen the outcomes within myself, and I was like, I want that for other people as well. Okay, so with that, I definitely challenge you guys to hold yourselves accountable to that small change you are going to be building into your life. Again, drinking water, I always put that. I have Post-its on my desk right now that are just like, hey, remember to drink water. Again, it doesn't have to be anything conscious. It can be something small that you do every day that has that impact over time. So with that, I do want to leave you guys with a little bit of messaging. The first is start with gratitude. As you guys saw during this session, I like to start and end a lot of my sessions with gratitude. When gratitude journals were trending a couple of years ago, I had one and I wrote down the things that I was grateful for. And I will say, whenever I first had one, I didn't see any change. I was working on it. My mom also had one, and so we would talk about it, and it was something that we were doing together. So I kept with it because of that connector. And it wasn't until probably been doing it for like 2 months that I realized that starting with gratitude, it impacted how I was remembering my life. I started to remember, some of these key things, these key factors in my life. So I want to leave you guys with that message of start with gratitude. Also be kind to yourself, even if it's not around well-being, just in general. I know when we do self-assessments, it's hard to be kind to ourselves. It's easy to get caught in the kind of the lure of perfection. Definitely give yourself that grace. If there's one thing in the pandemic that I'm grateful for, is like we've all, I feel like, as the world has been giving each other some grace. So don't forget to extend that grace to yourself. Also, own your well-being. This is your journey. This is you. Nobody's going to walk this road for you. You have to make that decision that this is something that you want to do. As much as I can sit here and tell you the impact that it's had on my life and the things that I have done, at the end of the day, putting those pieces into practice, taking what you want from this workshop, that is on you. Of course, if you ever want to talk well-being, I'm here to support you on that journey, but you have to take those first steps, and I sincerely hope that you do. And finally, unapologetically live your best life. Sometimes I say this a little cheekily, but I just do you and do you to the best that you can be, because this is your one crazy life. And again, Sydney, Trinity, and the larger, so thankful for everything that we've done today. I am going to put my LinkedIn connector in the chat, so that way you guys can connect with me larger. And I want to hear about your well-being journeys. I want to hear about your successes, maybe some things that are giving you a little bit of a headache. I've probably been there. If not, I'll still be there with you if you want me to. So thank you guys for your time. I look forward to all the great things as you guys navigate this journey that is WellBeing. And Sydney, I will turn it back over to you.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you again, Kim, for your time. We really appreciate it. I've included Kim's LinkedIn direct link in the chat as well, if you'd like to connect with her there. We are very thankful for you all for attending this session and engaging with us on this topic of prioritizing your well-being. If you have questions for us, please feel free to follow up. I'll also be sending a follow-up email to our attendees today for a quick feedback survey. You know, we always like to improve our event offerings, and one of the best ways to do that is through feedback. So if you have some time, that should take just a couple minutes. But other than that, we really thank you for joining us on this Wednesday afternoon and hope you have a great rest of your afternoon. Thank you so much.
Awesome, and kudos, Sydney. Thank you for being my participant for today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, no problem. Thank you. Have a great day.